My friend Shaunti, good to see you, and thank you very much for being with us here once again in New York City, a different platform named Zoom.
Yeah, but this is very different from being on stage with you 2 months ago. How life has changed.
It feels like a year ago. I think I've aged a year in this last season, but New York City, as you know, has been really hit very hard. And one of our
Yeah.
primary discussion today is on a matter that's going to really help us to regain some confidence and get our marriages better. And praise God, we hope get our money better as well. And there's been so many losses in New York, and people have lost their job, people have lost paychecks.
Yeah.
It's been a really challenging time, and no better person than to speak to you, the guru of research. You went from a Wall Street analyst, financial analyst, to do social research. You went to Harvard, you got your degree in social communications, and you're all about helping people to connect and build better relationships and all that. And I really value that. I so appreciate you leaving the posh of a Wall Street kind of executive analyst to really help us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. And I'm grateful to have a chance to speak to your folks. I just wish I was with you again in person. Hi, guys.
Our people in New York love you, and they scarfed up all your books. You're a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author. Your books have sold 3 or 4 million copies, which to me is crazy. Is amazing. Congratulations to that. You
Oh,
work
thanks. It's
and
a
you
total God thing. Total God thing.
I believe it, but you work so hard for that as well. And you really have. And this next topic that we're talking about here is about thriving in love and money. That's your latest book. It was what, a 2 or 3 year process?
Yeah, it was a 3-year research project. And, when I'm sorry, I think back to when me and Jeff and you and Lynette were sitting in that basement restaurant in New York 2 months ago and talking about this next project coming out, that none of us had any idea how quickly the world was about to change. And that 1 week later, when the book came out, that 1 week after that, suddenly there would be this national emergency declared. And
Wow.
now suddenly, this is a topic that we have millions of marriages who are stuck at home and worrying about money.
Right.
And we didn't know that this was coming, obviously, but God did. And the key here, by the way, Ron, for your people to be aware, the key here that we're talking about, this isn't how to have a great budget. That isn't what we were studying. There's tons of books out there that are great on that. This
Right.
is really, how do you have a great relationship around money? How do you talk about money at a time now when we really have to?
Yeah. So you've been very transparent. We've really enjoyed your book, and what we've read has just been very, very engaging. And of course, you're a very engaging person, and your research is so important. One of the things that I love about Shanti is she's really able to take um, discussions that are complicated out of the emotional realm into facts. And I think that's very helpful. It's like a mirror. A mirror won't lie to you. It's going to tell you tell you what your
Mm.
issues are. And I appreciate that. And it's you really bring out this point about how this is really an issue about relationships and how people feel about the discussion about money.
Yeah, the key here is a starting point for everybody to know. If you're like us, our income has been radically affected. All of our speaking engagements have been canceled. If you're facing that same kind of uncertainty, and even if you're not, most of us have a difficulty talking about money. So, and we can tell you statistically, it's 77% of us have difficulty talking about money.
Now,
And by
can I ask you about that right now or no?
yeah.
What makes it such almost an untouchable issue of discussion? What is that?
Well, here's the problem is there is so much tension that we don't recognize that when we're having that tension or defensiveness, or we avoid talking about money, the reasons have nothing to do with money. It's not about the money. It turns out it's about how money makes us feel and how it makes our spouse feel.
How
It's
does money make you feel? What is, I mean, is it the word safe? Is it secure? What are the words?
Well, it depends on who you are, right? Because for me, money was a warning, warning, danger zone, don't go there kind of conversation. And I wouldn't have been able to articulate why.
Wow.
And that is actually what we ended up studying in
Okay.
all of those, all of the big national surveys and all the stuff that we did. It was digging out and identifying all of what are the expectations running under the surface. It is about a whole bunch of insecurities or worries or fears that we don't even know are there half the time, or these beliefs about how money should operate. It's about all this stuff that's stirred up in us. And because we don't know it and we can't quite articulate how we're feeling, that is why it becomes a thing that we want to avoid. Unless, I mean, I think you and Lynette are probably in the 23% that can talk about money, and the rest of us are sort of jealous of you and we kind of think you're mutants. No offense for those of you who are listening who are in that 23%, but the rest of us, we need a little bit of help identifying that stuff.
And I think we're just a little bit older than, we've been through the hard knocks of building a relationship, and we've weathered a lot of storms together, and we've learned how to talk about money in a kind of a rational, cognitive way. And I think that's been to our advantage. But we're by no means perfect. And the assessment, we're going to get to your assessment in just a
Sure.
minute. But let's just go ahead and put that out there. How would you encourage people to do what we did, to take your online assessment? Now, is that part, the assessment, is that part of your 3 years of research?
It was, yeah. What we're talking about now is that we created an assessment at thriveandloveandmoney.com. And actually, we should probably, I guess we're going to put up a slide. You can actually get a link to the assessment if you just want to text the word money all in caps to 33777. It'll give you a link to this assessment that was actually, we put a lot of effort into creating something that was really quick. I think it probably took you 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that, but very robust in
Yes.
helping, yeah, in helping understand where we're starting in this conversation that isn't about the money and it's about all this other stuff, communication, feelings.
Let me just make this really clear. A lot of times when someone hears like an infomercial like this, they think that if you text something, that there's some expectation that you buy something.
No,
This is right. So I'm going to get
yeah,
that clear.
yeah,
Uh, I
no,
want you to get the assessment. We're speaking to our New York City audience, New Jersey. You hear about money all the time anyway. That's what New York City, that's the driving MO is what's the cash in your wallet is king, so to speak. And what we want to do is change the conversation into kingdom values, God's
yeah.
value in this, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. We want it to be on good things. And we know a lot of times money is a test. This assessment that we took is great because it gets you talking to the people you love the most. And
Yes.
even for Shaunti, tell us, even if they're not married, how can this be a value to the many singles in our congregation? We love you.
So this whole conversation that we're having about what's underneath the surface in how we feel about money, not just what the assessment identifies, but the whole spectrum. This is incredibly relevant for singles. And I know a lot of you listening to this, like a lot of major metro areas, there's a high number of singles in your congregation. And truly, this is probably more relevant in some ways and more important for you to get a handle on early than you realize, because I think right now the average age of marriage is 28, 29 years old. Most people come into marriage with their financial life already set. And every person listening to this who's single knows the feeling of being on a date with somebody and trying to get a handle on how responsible is this person about money? Do they have a lot of student loan debt? Do they have a lot of credit card debt? This is also a topic that amongst singles statistically is one of the biggest obstacles for actually pulling the trigger on marriage, for the sake of somebody thinking, I'm not sure I'm stable enough financially to be able to propose to my girlfriend. That's a huge issue. And
Yeah.
this is learning all of those things and how to talk about this now, learning what you feel and learning all of those expectations and thoughts that otherwise you wouldn't start stumbling over until you were several years into marriage. This will set you up really well. It's important for both sides, both whether single or married.
And this is a fascinating time for this research to come out because so many people have lost their jobs, lost their income. Uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of panic going on, a lot of fear. And like you, this has affected my household as well. My wife's business. One of my sons was just laid off because of COVID-19.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and many of our church people. I mean, we're grieving over this, but what you're saying is really helpful. You're getting us to dig deep into our own soul, do a deep dive, and talk to our our spouse, or our partner, our friends, our colleagues, whoever it is that we have to talk to.
Well, the key right there is what you just said. It's who we have to talk to. Because up until now, so many of us could avoid this. Right? I mean, in a time of prosperity, it is really kind of easy to say, I'll do my thing over here and you do your thing over here. And we don't have to talk about it. Well, you know what? Those days are gone. We
Yeah.
have to be able to come together and talk and plan and be able to not be all defensive about stuff, and to be able to actually become one like God tells us to be in our money, not just in our marriage. This is a huge issue. Money affects everything. And up until now, we've been able to kind of cope. And I really feel like this is a challenge that God has put in front of us, to be able to say, like so many things that are being shaken right now, we're being shaken in money. And this is an opportunity for us to be able to say, all right, I'm going to do the work, to be able to come together, figure out how to talk about money, and be able to come out of this much stronger.
And I appreciate it so much. And that's really a big part of your skill bank, is to help people to have that conversation. So you said in your book, and you talked about the one most important thing. Please elaborate on that.
Yeah, so the most important thing is I started to mention it earlier, which is that when we're having tension around money, it's not about the money. There is all those expectations and feelings running under the surface, and the key is identifying those in yourself and your spouse, so that you can talk about them. Statistically, talking about money was the most important thing you can do to improve your relationship. The second most important thing that you can do is to actually build cushion, which is maybe not surprising, especially right now, having a reserve fund is important. It turns out it's not so much what the level of money is that you make, because that's the big lie that all of us believe, right? Like,
Good.
we wouldn't fight about it if we just made more.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That is the big lie. So tell us, you in your books, you always go vulnerable. So let me ask you on this particular moment, what's the most vulnerable aspect of this for you and Jeff? Jeff's a great guy. I love Jeff. He's become my friend, and you've become our friend. But tell us, get honest with us right now. What was it like for you guys to work through this?
Oh, darn, Ron. I knew you were going to ask me that. So here's being very transparent. This was not an area of strength for me and Jeff. This was actually one of the areas in our marriage we were not on the same page, even after incorporating so much of the other research into our lives. When this research project came up, we were kind of scared, because this was not an area we could talk about very well. We didn't really fight about money, we just avoided it. And probably the best example of that, and I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, but the best example of that is that for years, Jeff is more the planner than I am. And he really wanted to go to Dave Ramsey at our church. He wanted to go to the Dave Ramsey class. And I kept going, gosh, honey, I'm traveling so much, and, I'm always on an airplane or whatever. I'm going to have to miss a lot of the classes. Yeah, those excuses were maybe real, sort of, but they really weren't the real reason. In the end, honestly, he went by himself because I wouldn't go with him.
Was the avoidance toward Dave Ramsey, or was it toward your husband?
Well, it was actually toward my husband. And it's a good question. And I probably should clarify that, because if I'm ever on Dave's show again, his radio program again, he's going to ask me that. um, but no, actually, it's a good point, Ron. It wasn't about Ramsey. It was about the way eventually I was able to articulate how I thought Jeff was going to handle it, because I wasn't able to articulate it at the time, which is what this whole thing is about, helping us articulate these thoughts and feelings. but at the time, what I was feeling that I didn't know was, you know what? If I go to this Dave Ramsey class with Jeff, he's going to put us on the equivalent of a 500 calorie a day diet.
Oh,
He's a very intense kind of guy. Like, we'll eat Franks and beans for the next half a year and get finances all figured out. And I rebelled instinctively against that, but I couldn't have told you why.
well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think all of us have our issues that we don't want to bring out in the public, just like you just did. But at least we can bring it in a safe place with our spouse, our loved ones, whoever. So you talk about money, about it reveals things like our heart, our emotions, but you also talk about it steers us in a certain direction.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Are one of those things that we don't necessarily understand that's going on, and this is actually one of the 5 factors that we found that were running underneath the surface, is we actually don't recognize what our values are. We don't recognize that one of the big things that's going on in our relationship with our spouse, and the reason for a lot of the day-to-day friction is that we're not valuing what our spouse values.
Yeah.
We truly we don't recognize, this sounds kind of silly, but we don't recognize, hey, they're another person. They are going to care about something different than I care about. And you
Yeah.
know what? In most cases, that's legitimate, unless somebody has a gambling addiction or something that we can't get into here that's beyond the scope of the research. Truly, it's usually not that I'm right, you're wrong. It's usually that we're just different. Do you mind if I give you an example of that?
I wish you would.
Okay. So silly, this is a silly example, but it's a simple one, but it's a pretty common one where one person is more the saver and one person is more the spender. Like, Jeff is more the saver, I'm more the spender. Right now, all of the savers are feeling very vindicated. They're feeling like this is the moment that we're supposed to have been saving for.
I
And
told you so.
yes, exactly. And Jeff was actually able to articulate something recently. At the beginning of the shutdown, about a week in, he came to me and he said, "You know, I realize I've been dealing with some resentment against you because if we hadn't gone out to eat as many times last year, or if we hadn't gone to Disney World with the kids, we'd have thousands of dollars more in our bank account right now. And now that all of our income sources have been sort of shut down, that would be really handy." But then, because he's gotten so much more used to being able to think through how I'm feeling, he said, but then I realized that those times out to eat or the Disney World vacation, that built memories. It brought us closer. It did something in our family that allowed for more connection. And here we are, kind of stuck at home in quarantine on top of each other, and we like each other. And that there was a benefit to that. And
Wow.
that's for me was so huge, to hear him be willing to honor what I value. It
Yeah,
made it more, it made it easier for me to be
man.
able to reduce defensiveness and say, okay, you've come my direction in understanding. It's easier for me to come to your direction in planning and saving, because I know that you're caring about what I care about. Even if you don't necessarily agree with it, that you're caring that I do care about it.
Well, this is a major part of what your book is about. It's
Yeah.
about discovering one another's values and building a bridge to work together to manage our life and our money, our resources a lot better. And I appreciate you saying what you just said about Jeff being transparent like that and coming to you. And I think it's an important moment to sort of admit our weaknesses and our flaws and our feelings like that. That's really good. And I think I'd like to say to our viewers in our church in Every Nation, New York City, New Jersey, a couple of words from the Apostle Paul: forgetting what lies behind. That does no good to go back in the past and
Yeah.
forget those issues when you're trying to build a brand new world. And God is really for you. And that, Shaunti, you are a fabulous, really, truly one of my all-time favorite social researchers. I've followed you. We've sat through your seminars in many different locations around the country. To me, you're that important. And so picking up a copy of this book and doing the assessment online, in my opinion, is an absolute necessity in this season. But you're this
Thanks.
great social researcher, but you're also, and we're coming to a close here, but you're also a follower of Jesus Christ. Bridge that connection right there?
Well, the key here is truly that so much of our research over the years has in social science has found what the Bible has said all along. And in when it comes to this area of money, depending on, how you sort of count it, it looks like Jesus talked about money more than almost any other single topic.
I've heard that
And
name.
we really realize that one of the reasons is that, when he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be,
Right.
it really, how you handle money, how you think about it, it really reveals the heart. But it's not just about revealing the heart of, like you talk about as a pastor, how you, whether you're generous and whether you tithe and whether you give reveals whether you trust God. And that's true. But how you handle money with your spouse, it also reveals whether you're trusting your spouse. It reveals whether you're willing to be one in marriage. I mean, even the kind of, I'll do my thing over here, my paycheck goes into my account, your paycheck goes into your account. Even that reveals that we're trying to kind of do our own thing instead of being one. And
Yeah.
somebody listening to this may go, well, we have joint accounts. I don't do that. And okay, maybe you don't, but okay, do you ever try to pull the Amazon package off the front step before your spouse sees it? I mean, that is the same trying to resist being one.
Yes.
All of this reveals what we're really thinking and feeling. And frankly, deciding that we're going to be one and deciding I'm going to let my spouse see everything I do financially and we're going to talk about it, that steers the heart. It doesn't just reveal it, it steers our heart towards oneness.
This is great, Shaunti. This is the wealth of information. I want to encourage everyone in our church family to go to thriveinloveandmoney.com, or you can text the word money, MONEY, capital letters, to 33777 and get the free assessment. That assessment really got Lynette and I talking, and that'll be worth this whole experience. Shaunti, as always, New York Times bestselling author. You've sold millions of books. Obviously, you've done something right, and appreciate you and your input. I'm going to give you the last word, so to speak, and share your heart.
Oh gosh, Ron. No, seriously, thanks for allowing me to speak to your people. I mean, truly, I just want to say to everybody listening to this, if Jeff and I can do this, you can do this. Because this is really a moment for us to kind of take a deep breath and say, God is doing a lot. I think we all know this. God is doing a lot during a very, very difficult time. And my heart is with you guys in New York City. You all have been at the epicenter of all of this. And really, we've been praying for you. And I just want to encourage you, this is a moment, as fearful as it can be, for us to say, all right, Lord, I'm going to use this to develop in these areas that you want me to develop in, to honor my spouse, to honor you, and really to come out stronger through this in a way that will allow the body of Christ to shine even more strongly once all this is done.
That blesses me so much, and
Oh,
thank you,
thanks.
Shaunti. And I want to thank you guys in every nation, New York City, New Jersey. We've been forced to go into a quarantine mode, and I want to honor you for making the most of it and moving forward. Most people are either fearful or they're frozen. They don't know what to do or they're afraid. But what we have the advantage of doing is moving forward thinking, forward learning, improving in our lot in life for the glory of God. So God loves you. He cares about you. He's not mad at you. He's mad about you. And he's so good that he's given you someone like Shaunti and her husband, Jeff, and their research to come into your corner to help us to be all that we're supposed to be for the glory of God. So thank you, Shaunti, again. Appreciate you and appreciate you guys at home.
Thanks.